You don't know what it is? And why that's so funny for some of you. Stop it. Well, I want to begin with some questions. How do we perceive social reality? I thought I'd start with some small questions here. This microphone really is working? There. It's got a range of about a half a centimeter, so you've got to really treat it like an ice cream cone. Okay. How do we perceive social reality? What is objectivity? And in this age of empire, how do we arrive at the truth?
Are they trying their beam weapons on us? Space Command.
It's okay. It's okay just to get the hum out of it, and that would be great. Can't go that. This is a sound system that's older. It's older than Franklin Roosevelt. What is objectivity? And in this age of empire, now you got no amplification, but that's better than having them hum. Yeah. In this age of in this age of empire, how do we arrive at the truth and still retain our sanity? These are some of the questions that inform this present inquiry, if I can get through it. The usual criticism made about objectivity is that it doesn't exist. We're not just passive receptors sponging up images and information. Perception, as you know, involves selecting and omitting, organizing data into comprehensive forms. In other words, the act of perceiving something is itself an act of editing, which introduces certain kinds of distortions. There's that classical Walter Lippmann statement that he made 80 years ago. We don't see things and then define them. We define them first and then see them. But the mental selectors we use to organize our perceptions are not mostly of our own creation. Much of our personal perception is really not all that personal. Rather, it's shaped by a variety of things outside of ourselves, such as the dominant ideology, conventional social values, one's position in the social structure, the available flow of information and disinformation, the potential benefits and losses that are attached to such perceptions. There's Upton Sinclair's famous quotation where he said, "It's very difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." So Alvin Goulner, he argued that our readiness to accept or decline or reject some view rests less on the evidence and the argument that's presented for that particular view, and more on how it fits our background assumptions, that is the climate of opinion. Climate of opinion was a term that Carl Becker, I think, first used, but that's very much the same. The notions that don't fit our background assumptions are seen as too far out and lacking in credibility. Maybe an easier way to do this. It's a very small lectern we've got here. Okay. No, I just like a good sound system if I could get it. Okay. Today, an analogous concept might be the dominant paradigm. A paradigm is a philosophical or theoretical framework within which empirical hypotheses are drawn and scientific theories develop. That's what we usually mean by paradigm. It's developed a more popular use. It means today I think it means the dominant paradigm means the mainstream ideology. And you see bumper stickers that say subvert the dominant paradigm. And the dominant paradigm is based on a unanimity of bias. And that unanimity of bias is what passes for objectivity in mainstream discourse. Well, if objectivity is really little more than conformity of bias, then isn't one paradigm about as reliable or unreliable as another? If objectivity is really little more than a conformity of bias, then isn't one paradigm about as reliable or unreliable as another? Is all truth then nothing more than opinion or belief? If not, what makes a dissident, heterodox analysis better than an orthodox or mainstream one? Or do we lapse into a relativism, which is, you know, who's to say? You got your opinion, I got my opinion, that's that. And the fundamentalists do argue this. I heard Pope Benedict say it, and I've heard some of the televangelists say it too. They posit their fundamental absolutist beliefs as being fixed and true and reliable. And if you don't have their fundamental absolutist beliefs, then the only alternative to that is a relativism, which is that anything goes and who's to say and what's true, what's not true, it doesn't matter, and what's right, what's wrong, who knows, there isn't anything like that. Well, I would argue that in fact that's not where we're left, that you can say that the dissenting opinion, the radical view, the views that are outside the mainstream, the views that are outside this unanimity of bias are generally, not always, but generally, are more reliable than the dominant view because they're more regularly challenged and tested against evidence. They don't get a free float down the mainstream. They're not supported by the unanimity of bias that passes for objectivity. Regarding orthodoxy, the most insidious oppressions are those that so insinuate themselves into the fabric of our lives and into the recesses of our minds that we don't even realize they're acting upon us. In the face of this, the heterodox view, the dissenting view, is not just another opinion among many. It has a special task to contest the prevailing orthodoxy, to broaden the boundaries of debate, to wake people up, to unearth suppressed data. The function of orthodox opinion is just the opposite, to keep the parameters of discourse as narrow as possible. Just listen to a presidential press conference, for instance. To dismiss evidence that ill-fits the dominant paradigm. So all opinions are not of the same value. It depends on what they're being used for, what interests they serve. We've all observed that if something doesn't fit what people believe, now you know about this, if something doesn't fit what people believe, they marshal up their reserved defenses and arguments, and sometimes very bitterly and very unyieldingly and unreceptively. It's called visiting relatives, right? Okay, how many have had this experience? You bring somebody up, no, not that experience, a new one. Hands eagerly shoot up into the air. I want to describe for you an example like this. You meet someone who has a firm belief about something, and you give that person contradictory data. You say, but there's this, and they say, oh, well, in that case, given that contradictory evidence and that, I now surrender my beliefs and I embrace yours. Now raise your hand if that's happened to you.